delighted to have you come down and see us.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
You're welcome.
You've heard this bill from me before. This is a school start date bill. I believe it's a locality's option to decide when they get to decide schools. I think we put our own kids across the Commonwealth to a disadvantage because 80 of the 130 plus localities that we have in the state currently allow that waiver due to snow days and all. And so I think it's time that we put all our kids on the same playing field. My bill has a little different caveat to it than rather than just start in any time in August, when they choose to start school. Our kids will definitely be out by Memorial Day, hopefully, so that after SOLs are completed, the kids aren't there for, 3 more weeks and really not doing a whole lot, that they'll be finished with school and they'll start to enjoy their summer. But my bill also it requires a 5-day Labor Day weekend. And the reason I put that in there is because every year tourism stands before us and says how they're going to lose all this money by starting school prior to Labor Day. Any kid who's involved in sports or the band and lots of school activities already is required to be around in August anyway. So I'd like to see us be able to give schools the option to start school prior to the Labor Day and then require that 5-day weekend. And in the bill, it's very specific. They would be required from Thursday through Monday or Friday through Tuesday for that 5-day weekend to allow families to have a little flexibility. Any school system that currently has the waiver will not be required to have that 5-day weekend. We grandfathered them out of that because I know that was some concerns for some of the localities. And that's the bill. That's
Great.
What it does.
Well, Delegate, thank you very much. And also, if Delegate Adams, would you like to say anything you feel?
Just second that. The patron of the bill that was incorporated.
Great. So well done. So we've heard this many times. We've heard it a lot this session. Anyone? Yes. Would you like to say something?
I'd love to speak in favor of the bill.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll put a clock out there and we'll let you speak. We'll put a 2-minute clock and be glad to hear from you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Nancy Trainer, and I'm co-chair of the Education Committee for the Fairfax County Federation of Citizens Associations. We strongly support the school calendar bill. I refer you to the testimony you received several years ago from the principal of my brother's alma mater, Jeb Stuart High School, which was considered an underperforming school. The principal said that starting the school year before Labor Day was critical in taking Stuart from a failing school to an award-winning one. This principal was a Virginia and National High School Principal of the Year. So we urge you to help all students with this common sense policy for the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
It's about a minute and a half, and if you want to state your support.
Vicki Manugo Greco with Norfolk Gaines, Growing and Investing in Norfolk Schools, members of which fully support HB 372. As you all know, there are 1,823 public schools in Virginia. 88 of these schools were denied accreditation this school year. 72% of these underperforming schools, totaling 63, are in the school divisions that are forced to begin instruction after Labor Day. We'd like for our educators and teachers and students to front load learning at the very end, at the very beginning before the SOL season, testing season begins. We do not want our children watching DVDs at the end of the school year.
Great. Thanks for coming. And you just have about 30 seconds left. Do you want to state your support?
Tom Smith, Superintendent's Association. We're in strong support and appreciate Delegate Robinson looking and trying to work through the particulars. We think it's a good bill in which you would pass it on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity. Jim Livingston, Virginia Education Association. We believe it is a local control issue and support the bill.
Great. Thanks for coming by today.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Jeremy Bennett, Virginia School Boards Association. Strong supporter of this bill, and thank the patron.
Great. Thank you.
Barry Weinstein with the Federation of Teachers of Virginia. We support the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming by. Perfect timing, too. So Delegate Robinson and also Delegate Adams, thank you very much. Anyone here that has a different view on the bill, we're going to put you under the same clock.
Pretty fine. Eric Terry, the president of the Virginia Restaurant Lodging and Travel Association. We have released studies in the past that looks at performance on this, and I think you all have seen that in the past, that it really has had no negligible impact. We do have an industry that is generating significant tax dollars and jobs creation, and this is a really critical time period for them to finish off the year, and so we would ask that you vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thanks for coming by today. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Catherine O'Donnell from Richmond Region Tourism, representing Chesterfield, Hanover, Henrico, New Kent, and the City of Richmond. And for the reasons that Eric has already outlined, we oppose these bills.
Great. Thanks for coming by. Yes, ma'am. Welcome. Hey.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Susan Gaston on behalf of the Greater Williamsburg Chamber and Tourism Alliance, and we represent about 800 small businesses in the historic Triangle area, as well as promote year-round that the destination is a family-oriented, exciting place to be and continues to be a major source of our revenue. If I could just briefly offer that we remain advocates of keeping the current Labor Day law in order to preserve the position for our tax revenue in the localities that we represent. Let me offer you just a few sources of income. Our room revenue in August of 2017 was $24.4 million. Our meal revenues, $46.9 million. Our sales revenues, $221.5 million. That comes to $9.4 million a day. So losing the 2 weeks of tourism revenue is significant for our region and would equate to $132 million lost from mid-August up through the Labor Day weekend. That local tax revenue is then, of course, invested into our schools and into our public safety system, and we would appreciate your support of opposing the bill.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one very brief question after we got those numbers?
Yes, Senator Suderline. Yeah.
How do those numbers compare now that Fairfax County, the largest school division in the Commonwealth, started earlier this year? Have we seen a huge impact, and should finance be concerned that we're not going to be getting that revenue?
I do not know the information about Fairfax County schools, sir. I'm sure that someone can obtain those numbers, but speaking directly to the tourism impacts, I can continue to give you that information.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And we've got about, Senator, yes, sir, of course, Senator Locke. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I can find out for you. Senator Locke can get that information to you.
Senator Locke, does that complete your questions? Okay, very good. For those, we've stopped the clock, but now we've just got about a few seconds. If you'd state your name and please don't read anything to us, but just state your name and your position. Thank you.
Okay, Candace Reed representing the Hampton Roads Chamber, and we are in opposition of the bill.
Thank you for coming today. Yes, sir. You state your name.
John Easter, Chamber RVA, the regional chamber here in the Richmond area. We oppose the bill.
Great. Thanks for coming today. Yes. Hey.
Julia Carlo Hammond on behalf of the City of Virginia Beach, and we did see a dip, and I can get you those numbers.
Oh, very nice. Perfect. Great. Good job, everyone. Okay, Rosalind, if you just have 15 seconds or so, if you want to wrap up, we're going to vote.
Well, the only thing I would add to this is you can see it's all that eastern shore, basically, area, Richmond and East, that always comes before us and says that. But there are many states that have beaches and tourism, and their kids do start before Labor Day, and they're still able to function, and they're still able to make it. And we'll also make that up, hopefully, over Memorial Day and in early weeks of June, so they won't see that tremendous loss, because they never give that comparison. So thank you.
Well, Dr. Robinson and Delegate Adams, thank you both for coming before us. We appreciate your time. Is there a motion on the bill?
Move to report.
All right, we're going to hear some comment. I apologize. I had people that logged in. Let me go to Senator Lewis first, then Senator Chase. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I actually have a motion, so if someone wants to speak to it.
Okay, let's just wait just a second. So, Senator Chase.
Thank you. I like this bill so much. I co-sponsored. I had my own version in the Senate, and I just want to emphasize to you all who maybe don't have children in school right now. I still have two. The kids are not doing anything the last 2 weeks of school other than watching videos straight from the Chase boys. I think we need to change this. And if you look at how Delegate Roxanne Robinson has carved this out, it gives tourism what they need that weekend of Labor Day. So I want to make sure that we're on the same bill here. It's the best of both worlds. Our kids get instruction instead of sitting there watching TV the last 2 weeks of school. And you still also get to have your tourism on the Labor Day weekend. So I would encourage us to support this bill wholeheartedly. And I move that we report this bill and ask that you support it.
All right, Senator Lewis, was that your motion? Would you like to speak?
No, Mr. Chairman, I actually would have a substitute motion.
All right, what is your substitute motion?
My motion would be to carry over.
Okay. So you'd like to speak to that motion?
I'd like to speak to it
if I could. Yes, sir. Senator Lewis.
If I could, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, like the Menhaden, this issue visits us every year.
Sure does. And I'll be back.
And I applaud Delegate Robinson for this creative effort. And the only reason I am moving to carry over and not voting against is because I think the time has come that we have a solution to this problem or this question, this issue. And we have two very important competing interests here. Certainly the tourism, we are a commonwealth, and certainly anything that inures to the benefit of the tourism industry eventually inures to the benefit of our public school system. And certainly in Hampton Roads that's the case. But at the same time, I have people who are very passionate about public education, and they think this would really benefit, particularly in Norfolk, the public school system. So I have been assured, Mr. Chairman, by blood oath, that between now and the 2019 session, there will be a good faith effort on the part of the tourism industry in particular to reach some sort of consensus on this perennial perplexing or vexing issue. And so that is the source of my motion, Mr. Chairman, to carry.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Lewis. Senator Black.
First, I would second the motion, and my thanks to Delegate Robinson, who has done, I think, a great job with the bill. We do have the balancing act between the schools that some of which are genuinely having some sincere issues with this, and also with the areas of the state that rely very heavily on the tourism and so forth. I think there has got to be a solution to it, and I believe that if we carry this over for a year, perhaps we can come up with a solution and get this taken care of.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Senator Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just speaking to the motion, I support the motion. A couple of points to make. One is that we had legislation several years ago and then action by the Department of Education that allows SOL tests to be given at any day during the school year. So regardless of whether the last day in the school year is in the middle of May or in the middle of June, you can give the SOL test on that last day. So there's no excuse for saying that we need to have school end earlier because of SOL tests. The SOL test decisions are made at the local level, and they can set those at any particular time. I would also say that of the states that have the highest rated educational systems, many of those states that are comparable to or slightly above Virginia in terms of overall performance, Massachusetts, New York, nearly all their schools do start after Labor Day. And in Maryland, which has been comparable to us, they are now moving to having schools largely start after Labor Day. And do so to be able to maintain the economy, and has seen no significant negative impact upon their student performances.
Thank you, Senator Barker. Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest that the very fact that we've been discussing this for well more than a decade shows that it's not been a balancing act. We've allowed one specific industry to make this decision. I'm always reminded that when I got my committee assignments, and the very first call I got on me being on this committee wasn't from anyone in teaching or school boards or hospitals, which you would think would all care the most about this committee. It was the tourism industry that was first at my door to congratulate me on my assignment and to tell me about how great this law is. You know, with Fairfax starting this way, those kids are going to miss out on watching Animal House, which is what I did 15 years ago in our final weeks, which I still don't know how that English teacher got away with it. So those kids will really miss out. But it's not just on the SOLs. There's other tests that are very critical that there's not that flexibility for. And all this is trying to do is send it to the local school divisions to decide how to do it. And so, you know, we heard some remarks about carrying it over again. I think we ought to just have a straight up vote on report, and hopefully we'll finally pass, because I think Delegate Robinson has done everything she can to work with the folks and meet their concerns.
Great. Senator Suderline, thank you very much. Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to speak against the motion. We've been doing this for years and years. It will, in effect, be carried over once we have the recorded vote, because I can count. So it will be back next year as well. And I think at some point we need to look at what's in the best interest of the children rather than what's in the best interest of special interests.
Thank you, Senator Howell. Senator Locke.
Senator Howell just took my remarks. Because I'm also going to vote against the motion, because at some point we have to think of what's in the best interest of children. I think that tourism is very important to our Commonwealth and to the economy of the Commonwealth. But at some point we have to think of what's in the best interest of our children and education of our children. And that is what is utmost important. And we need to look at the data and to see who's contributing to that economy in August. Is it out-of-state individuals, or is it the families of the children of this Commonwealth? Or is it people who are coming into the Commonwealth who are making these contributions? So, I think that we're just being wrong-headed about this, and we need to support this legislation.
Thank you, Senator Locke. Next up, Senator Peterson.
Just very briefly on, I tell people that August is the new September if you're a school parent, because if your children are in high school and they play football, they play field hockey, cheerleading, they're going to have to be there in August anyway, okay? So they're going to be there in August anyway. The only difference is they're not going to class. They're sitting around, watching Price is Right during the day. So frankly, we're already forced to be home during August if you're a parent of a high school student. Secondly, and Senator Suderline mentioned this, Fairfax County Public Schools started a week early this year. And last time I checked, the Western civilization didn't come to an end. So I think this is already moving this way. The final point is, the House voted this out. The House delegates just went through an election cycle. This passed out 3-1 in the other body, okay? And they're already showing they're a little bit ahead of us on some issues. So this is going to happen anyway. I don't know why we're punting this to 2019. Maybe we need an election cycle to get this one right, but the bottom line is let's make this law now.
Thanks, Senator Peterson. Next up is Senator Carrico.
Mr. Chairman, just to give you some insight, my kids have always started in August. They still watch the movies. They still get out early because it's so hot. They still, it never changed anything, so I don't know that this bill would change anything either.
Great. Senator Chase, would you like to speak again? Okay. Yes, Senator Chase.
I just want to make one last comment. Every year, the AP and the IB tests are there federal tests that take place at the same time every year. We are disenfranchising Virginia students. I would actually like to make a substitute motion that we report this bill.
Yep. So procedurally, we can't get there because we've had a motion and substitute, so we're kind of stuck where we are. So we're going to have to show it on one and then the other. So next up is Senator Cosgrove, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Comments have been made about the special interests, and out-of-state people benefits them more than Virginians. We're coming from an area that's heavily dependent on tourism that pumps a lot of dollars into the Commonwealth's coffers. Basically, this is a Virginia bill that benefits Virginia people who are employed by the tourism industry, whether it's at the Eastern Shore, whether it's the Virginia Beach, whether it's Old Town Alexandria, all through the Commonwealth. The arguments that the kids spend the last 2 weeks watching movies, it's not going to make any difference whether the last 2 weeks is in June or the last 2 weeks is in May or later. They're going to still watch the movies. The dates aren't going to make any difference. So I hope that we'll not accept the bill. Thank you.
Senator Cosgrove, thank you. Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope I'm the last to speak because I know everybody's ready to move on, but I will simply say that I think the preponderance of the data, looking at both sides, speaks to not changing this law at this time. And until I see persuasive data that it is actually to the advantage of the kids, I believe everybody on this panel supports speaking in the best interest of the kids first. But I will go further to say I am perplexed why we discuss this every year when there are other variables that can alter the school year, including the school board's ability to change the length of their days. They can change the length of their days a very small amount, and shorten the year and not have any movies at the end of the year and get everybody out sooner. So the idea that this is the single variable upon which all of these other things follow is a mistake, and I think we're spinning our wheels talking about something that's overly politicized. We need to look at the facts, and right now the facts support leaving the law in place.
Okay, thank you, Senator Donovan. Senator Lucas.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a bit amused when Senator Suderline said that we've been debating this issue for the last decade, because there are those of us who've been debating it for 26 years.
3 decades.
And everything that needs to be said about this bill has been said, except that everybody hasn't said it. So I'm going to weigh in as well. And Senator Locke and I have had quite a number of discussions about this, and I let her break my arm one year and vote contrary to what I normally do. But for the last 25 years, I have voted to oppose this bill. And the reason I have done that is because when we talk about what's in the best interest of students, sometimes increasing the economy is also in the best interest of students. And so for that reason, I continue to oppose the bill.
Great.
I will be voting no.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Senator Lucas. Any other member? If not, just briefly, because I think I'm the only one that hasn't spoken.
Break it again.
Just briefly, as you know, I'm going to oppose it, but I want to make sure the audience understands a couple of things. One, we still have 180 days. There's not one child will get one more day with this. Not one child will get one more day less without it. Number two is that we have in the budget for a bunch of these counties, almost all the, I mean, it's over half the counties in the budget for over 10 years. Senators on this panel and I put it in an absolute exemption. So there is that exemption. For the areas where there's other interest, it remains. Next is that if we aren't careful, a lot of the accommodations in this bill, which may not be desired in that other area, will come flooding into that area. So they may be needed for tourism, but not in the rest of the state. So I think that what I've understood from Senator Lewis and Senator Black is there a desire to work with those that have a contrary view to this bill and find a pathway forward. I would refer you to the budget as ways to do that. There for those areas, so there might be a way to do it in a similar way as we do currently in the budget. The motion and the second, that was a substitute motion, is that the bill be carried over for the year. All those in favor of the motion will record your votes aye. Those opposed, no. And the clerk will close